Bryan Stevenson, an attorney for victims of death row, states that the death penalty is not about whether people deserve to die for the crimes they commit. The real question of capital punishment in this country is, do we deserve to kill? The death penalty is part of our everyday lives, and although it is not seen or necessarily pronounced around the streets, it is there and it is responsible for deciding the fate and taking the lives of individuals. Do we deserve to kill? Have we not all committed an act of hate against someone else at one point in our lives? Why is their crime any different from ours? Do we deserve to be killed for that act of hate by our neighbor, our friend, our fellow American? Do we deserve to kill? Today we're going to see why the death penalty should be abolished. We're going to go over the problems associated with the death penalty, followed by the solutions of these problems, and finished off with the advantages to getting rid of the death penalty. First and foremost, what are the problems with the death penalty? First of all, there's the expense issue. John Roman says that cases receiving a death notice are approximately $517,000 more costly during the trial phase, $147,000 more costly during the appellate phase than the capital eligible case where no death notice was filed. On average, a death notice adds about $1 million in cost over the duration of a case. It is shown that life in prison is actually cheaper than putting someone to death. And it's the taxpayers' money, yours and my money, that are being spent on all of this. So your money, your good money, is going towards killing someone. Is that good? I don't think so. Secondly, 87 people have been freed from the death row because they were later proven innocent. That is an error rate of 1 person for every 7 people executed. It is unacceptable to execute an innocent man or woman. This is really not too much to ask for a civilized society, says Russ Feingold, a U.S. senator. Innocent people have been released from death row because they were later proven innocent. However, they will never go back into society because they will never be seen as normal. It's either that or they actually are killed even though they're innocent on death row. Secondly, let's go over the solutions to all of these problems. First of all, we simply need to follow our Constitution, which says that there should be no cruel and unusual punishment. Bryan Stevenson follows on this and says, we would never think it was humane to rape a person convicted of rape or assault and abuse someone guilty of assault and abuse. Yet we are comfortable killing people who kill in part because we think we can do it in a manner that does not implicate our own humanity the way that raping or abusing someone would. Cruel and unusual punishment is seen in so many different ways. Killing in this scenario is no different than rape or abuse. We must follow our legal and our moral codes when deciding the fate of a human being. Secondly, we need to better our court system. Although we can talk about this topic in a completely separate speech, bettering our court system and giving them the ability to provide themselves, the lawyers, the people on trial, with a better and more thorough hearing will ultimately benefit the entirety of the U.S. It will give time to prove innocence or guilt and to thoughtfully decide the fate of an individual. Finally, let's discuss the advantages of these solutions. This will ultimately limit inhumanity. It is shown that there is no correlation between homicide rates and the death penalty, according to New York Times, who found that states without the death penalty have lower homicide rates than states with the death penalty. The homicide rate in states with the death penalty has been 48 to 101% higher than in states without the death penalty. In this, not only innocent lives are saved, but all lives are saved because there's no death penalty and no one's dying for their actions, especially since the death penalty does not seem to pose a threat to potential and current murderers. There's ultimately no reason of having it, especially for that threat argument that a lot of people pose. In addition, Vicky Schreiber, a mother of a murder victim, says that the death penalty traps families into decades of uncertainty, legal hearings, and waiting. In contrast, a life without parole sentence allows the victims' families to move on and begin the healing process, secure in the knowledge that the offender will ultimately die in prison, rather than forcing them to endure years of waiting for an execution that may take decades to be carried out or possibly never happen. The inhumanity does not end with the murders, but it also includes the family. The family is sent into a whirlwind of emotion, not only over the person that they had just lost, but over the fate of the murderer. Because it takes so long in the death penalty for them to actually decide whether or not they should be put to death, and to actually put this person to death, the victim's family is just sitting there waiting to see what will happen. Today we talked about the problems associated with the death penalty. Then we talked about how to fix the problems with the death penalty, and we concluded with the advantages to abolishing the death penalty, giving everyone a clear picture as to why the death penalty should ultimately be abolished and gotten rid of completely. We return to the question, do we deserve to kill? Do we deserve to decide the fate of our fellow man, a friend, a neighbor? Is that really what we deserve? Most importantly, is that what they deserve? Thank you very much.